behavior and sexuality. And just from our discussion yesterday, where I elaborately discussed a lot of key terms or concepts that we're going to use throughout this module, today of some of the key issues we captured. Just to take us back, we looked at sex, we looked at gender, we looked at sexuality, we looked at sexual health as a definition, but also sexual orientation in here. We looked at it, and we looked at sexual behaviors, which is mostly what we're going to discuss today. And for the start, sexual behavior, these are actions related to the expression of one's sexuality, as we said yesterday. And how they differ with sexual health is that sexual health is about an individual's ability to express and enjoy one's sexual freedom. Having given us a brief about what we discussed, let us go into what we expect to learn in discussing sexual behavior and sexuality today. Now, our learning objectives for this particular module are in here. We expect that we are able to define sexual behavior and attitude, and then we explain their relationship to sexual health and well-being. We expect that we're able to identify the biological, psychological, social, and cultural factors that influence sexual behavior. And I would want this to be a little more of an interactive session where individuals can share some of the aspects through which sexual behavior is influenced. Then we expect to compare and contrast the different theoretical perspectives on sexual behavior and attitude. A theory, in brief, these are phenomena that we expect out of accurate or best research. So we would want to look at the theoretic or phenomena that has been researched about. Then we also expect to describe the development of sexual behavior and attitude across a lifespan from a childhood up to adulthood. How people develop sexual behavior. Then we expect to discuss the diversity of sexual behavior and attitude among different groups of people, such as gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, and culture. Now, if you were part of our lecture yesterday, I am very sure that most or majority of these words that we are using here, be it gender, be it sexual orientation, be it sexual behavior, you're well versed with these concepts. The reason we explained them in the earlier lecture. So these are the learning objectives we expect as we go through this particular lecture. So what is sexual behavior? Just to take us back, this refers to the actions and activities individuals engage in related to their sexual experience. Now, sexual attitudes, beliefs, opinions, and values individuals hold regarding sex, relationship, and related topics are also another way we can define sexual behavior. You as an individual, what are your thoughts? What is your opinion? What do you treasure, or what is your value about sex? Is your sexual behavior. And we earlier discussed that an individual just does not develop sexual behavior as a sole person. You cannot be isolative and you develop your sexual behavior. Your sexual behavior develops as a result of your social interactions, as a result of who do you stay with, which society do you stay in, what are the norms of your society, what religious beliefs do you have. Now, these are the issues that shape your sexual behavior. And that is what the definition is telling you. Now your actions, your thoughts, the activities, they are just the behavior you adopt, or the behavior that you practice as a result of the influences you've had in your socialization. Therefore, we want to look at our sexual behavior vis-a-vis sexuality, but we very well know that behavior also includes what an individual holds in high regard. Now, this is sexual orientation. Sexual orientation, we are looking at what is someone's sexual attraction. And in orientation, you know, away from the word sexual, orienting, the word called orienting is in other words grooming. You're trying to groom someone into a specific sphere that you want. Likewise, sexual orientation is referring to someone's desire or attraction to a particular sex or gender. From our definitions yesterday and even today, they are being defined in here, and you can be able to see that those who are sexually attracted to men, when they are female, these are heterosexual individuals, that you are attracted to your opposite gender. So there are different categories of sexual orientations, and as we proceed, we shall be able to understand how an individual gains a sexual orientation. Your society also influences this. So the common sexual orientations we know today include heterosexuals. These are people who are attracted to the opposite gender. We also have homosexuals. These are now individuals who are attracted to the same gender. However, our African societies are having perceptions that a girl or a woman cannot, in a cultural perspective, be attracted to another woman. So that is why here we will need an open interaction. You need an open mind when you're discussing issues to deal with homosexuality. Majority of our societies in the African setting do not actually allow or do not permit such deviations. So in our communities, we call them deviants. These are people who are deviating or who are practicing otherwise, away from our social norms. Then there are those we call bisexuals. These are people who are both attracted to males and females. These are people who are attracted to both genders, and they are called bisexuals. There are other sexual orientations which include pansexual, asexual. We have even those who are practicing bestiality. We have those who are practicing pedophilia, the attraction to children only, and these are deviants. We're not saying these are actually orientations that we permit or our social constructs permit, but these are where in a society where these behaviors are not permitted, then those become deviations. And we have got a lot of what in an African setting we could call deviation. However, we have seen that in Europe, most of our colleagues in Europe, some of their societies permit some of these orientations, unlike some of our African societies. So then that takes us to the LGBTQ and the terminology. Having looked at the different sexual orientations, now Yesterday, we were talking about sexual rights, ability of an individual to freely express their sexuality. And this term LGBTQ is a formation or is a rights group that therefore is advocating for the rights of these people. These people who have this sexual orientation. They are the LGBTQ standing for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer. We now have, I think, asexual, gender queer, non-binary. We've got a lot of these different orientations that are coming under this umbrella so that they advocate for their own rights. And that is what LGBTQ in that regard means. Then if you're to look at the LGBTQ terminology and LGBTQ health disparities. Now, these are individuals that are facing a lot of health issues. One, we are looking at a higher rate of mental health issues. We're looking at substance abuse. We're looking at healthcare access. Now, we are trying to, when we're discussing issues of sexual rights, remember yesterday we discussed that we should provide healthcare free of discrimination. However, our health systems are having a lot of disparities regarding discrimination. And these are the challenges those who associate with LGBTQ are facing in very many African societies. As a result, they are prone now to STIs. They cannot access good health care. There is stigma. So, in other words, our society lacks LGBTQ plus inclusive healthcare. And because of this now contributes to the disparities we are seeing in the health system. Because these are individuals who are in the society. When you deprive them of certain services, then you're increasing the level of issues, public health issues in the society. Because of denying them access to healthcare, then you're increasing the mental health issues in the society. You're increasing STI issues in the society. However, different efforts are being made to address these disparities. And these include the advocacy. We're seeing policy changes. We have a lot of, for those who watch football, we're seeing advocacy through football in the European world. We're seeing the rainbow in Germany is very prone. And in African countries, for example, in Uganda, that recently passed the harsh LGBTQ law, we have seen religious people in the diaspora or people in the US. We have seen religious people trying to advocate for the rights of these people, saying that we cannot deny them access. So our major discussion on the LGBTQ should not be about whether an individual is practicing or not, but should be one, on how we raise our children, two, on non-discrimination. So then you do not have to put in harsh policies if individuals to stop LGBTQ if you are bringing people in your African society. So these are the challenges the health system is grappling with, issues of discrimination against LGBTQ. So we have sexual behavior and interpersonal relationships. I will go up to slide 10 and I will ask if anyone has a question. So if you have questions, you could kindly hold them for now. Then when I reach the 10th slide, we can be able to pick a few questions. Now, sexual behavior and interpersonal relationships. Yesterday, we had a discussion on relationships, and we were able to discuss what a healthy relationship entails and how healthy relationships affect public health positively. Now, attraction and desire. Sexual behavior plays a significant role in the initial attraction between individuals. Factors such as physical attractiveness, shared interests, and chemistry contribute to sexual desire and formation of relationships. How do you get into a relationship? One is that both individuals feel physically attracted. They feel they share interests, and they feel they both deserve to be together. So that attraction and desire is what leads to relationship. Two is love and intimacy. Now, sexual behavior and attitude are intertwined with emotional intimacy and development of loving relationships. For majority of you, for those who always argue that relationships can be there without intimacy, I most times tell them that that is a lie. Yeah, that is my own perspective anyway. But if you feel physically attracted to each other, then you will always have emotional intimacy. However, the period of intimacy is dependent on your religious and cultural beliefs. We understand that there are different religious discussions on when a couple should have an intimacy. So you will always have a love and the emotional intimacy, but the period of when and how depends on our social construct. Communication and consent is yet another leading or component that leads to interpersonal relationships. Effective communication is vital for expressing desires. We talked about communication yesterday, and it includes being clear and being trustworthy by both individuals. What is the history of sexual revolution? The gradual shift from conservative values to more liberal and permissive attitudes. What are we talking about when we're talking about sexual revolution? Just like any other revolt or any other change, we had the Industrial Revolution in Europe. This is change. When we talk about revolution, we are simply talking about change. And that is why we're saying it has shifted from a gradual, there has been a gradual shift. If you're to have a look back into our African setting, for example, maybe our great-grandparents, we very well know that we had sexual values. And many societies today wish to maintain certain sexual values that are conservative regarding intimacy. For example, we had values on virginity of African girls, if I'm to talk for my society. However, there has been a shift gradually, if you to look at it today, from being conservative, that a woman who is not virgin is not paid dowry or is not carried, the traditional rights are not carried. We have gradually shifted to accepting or to being a little liberal, meaning that we are a little tolerant, and we permit certain attitudes. So the sexual revolution of the 1960s and 1970s include now fighting for reproductive rights. Reproductive rights meaning that women, or we knew, first of all, when we're discussing reproductive health rights, we understand that there are several rights. For example, the right to make an informed decision on when and how to either prevent or have children. We know there are reproductive health rights of privacy. So these are part of the revolution we are talking about. Back then, we did not have such rights. Today, we're talking about the LGBTQ rights. We're saying that an individual can be bisexual, can be lesbian, and this is where the sexual revolution started. We've had the issue of the emergence of sex-positive ideologies. By then, we know, I also know, either positively, we know that societies back then, you couldn't discuss sexual issues. You couldn't openly have a sexual education with children or in the outskirts of your home. But we have started seeing positive ideologies. All these are revolutions that have come, which we term as sexual revolutions. We also see now the influence of technology. Now, technology, mass media, and the global interconnectedness, where, for example, today, we can be able to interact from here, but when you're afar, this is global connectedness. And also this now has influence on your sexual behavior, but it also has influence on your attitude. And this is all we are discussing regarding sexual revolution. Now we have contemporary perspectives here. LGBTQ plus rights and acceptance. Analysis of the progress made in recognizing and affirming diverse sexual orientations and gender identity. Sexual empowerment and agency. Discussion on the importance of consent, sexual autonomy, and the empowerment of individuals in making informed choices about their bodies and desires. Digital age and sexual expression. Examination of the impact of technology, online platform, and virtual relationships on contemporary sexual behavior and attitude. We're trying to show, contemporary perspective, we're trying to ask you as individuals, as public health experts, as reproductive health people in your community, what are your perspectives regarding LGBTQ rights and acceptance in your community? How do you recognize or affirm different sexual orientations and gender identities? How do you discuss, or what is your perspective on the sexual empowerment and agency when discussing of issues of consent, sexual autonomy, that an individual can make decisions on when and how to live their sexual life, their sexual behavior? What is the influence of the digital world today on sexual expression? So these are some of the contemporary aspects you need to look at that are influencing sexual behavior and attitudes today. Now, before we go to the determinants and the influences of sexual behavior, can we have, if there are any, do we have any questions before I can proceed? Do you have any questions? How far we have gone? Okay, silence means no. Okay, yes, there's a hand up there. Yes, Rose.
Mine is, yes, I would like you to explain more again on the contemporary perspective of the LGBTQ.
Okay. Any other question? Any other question? Okay. If that is the only question in there, now what we're talking about when we're talking about a perspective, perspectives, just as a behavior, are driven by an individual's thoughts, beliefs, and these beliefs are shaped by how you raised up. Therefore, when we're talking about the contemporary perspectives, we are looking at perspective. We're looking at an individual's thoughts or an individual's perceptions on key issues on sexuality that we have brought in here. We are looking at LGBTQ plus rights and acceptance. However, we are trying to look at what is the perspective, or what is you as an individual, or what is the societal perspective of the LGBT rights and acceptance. What does your society recognize? Does your society recognize that there are diverse sexual orientations? So it is more, a perspective is more of an opinion. And why this slide is brought in here is so that you as the scholar, you're able to have a perspective, you're able to have a thought about these key issues. The discussion on the importance of consent. Now, we're looking at sexual empowerment and agency. And this builds about discussion on the importance of consent. But how is your society's thought on the importance of consent? Does your society allow that an individual has a consent on any reproductive health issue? Does an individual have sexual autonomy? Can you decide when and how to bear children, or to engage in a sexual activity? This is the perspective through which this slide is taking us through. When you're talking about digital age and sexual expression, you just don't look at it from the text here or from the textbook point of view. You need to look at the examination of the impact of technology in your society vis-a-vis the sexual expressions in your society. Today, like I discussed yesterday, because of the digital age today, people are able to express their sexuality through WhatsApp. You're seeing emojis. Someone will send you an emoji of love. That is already an impact of the technology. People are having phone calls. Long ago, we did not have these platforms. Today, people are dating online. You would log into your Google Chrome browser, and the next thing is they are showing you can date in UK. You can only share your email and they send you a list of people who are searching. That is how we need to have a perspective, a look into these issues, and not to take us away. We must relate this into sexual health. We must relate this into sexual health. Samuel, I would want to make the next presentation a discussion. I don't know if that is permitted according to your recording issues. I don't know, because the next, if it is permitted, I would just want each one to give a point in the next slide so that it is interactive. I don't know if you can permit me to do that.
Yes, I can do it, whereby I can pause my recording when they are presenting. Then when you
okay,
resume, start from there.
The next, I think Samuel is a little far from his gadget, but the next discussion I want us to have is on the determinants and the influences on sexual behavior. There is already one there, and from all this other time I have been close to preaching. Therefore, let us have an interactive session on determinants and the influences of sexual health. In your own perspective, in your own thoughts, in your societies, what do you see as the determinants and what influences sexual behavior? Let us have someone put up their hand if they have an answer, and then I can mention your name and you're able to mention your answer. If we can do that very fast, we will be good to go. Yes. Yes, Rose.
From my side, we have different religions that we have in most cases also have influence on one's behavior towards sex. Like, for example, in Muslim culture or in the Christian culture, where sometimes before one sees wait for the time of the marriage.
Yes, that is one. Yes, another determinant and influence on sexual behavior. Yes, John.
Yeah, thank you. I think also one of the determinants that influence sexual behavior is economic. When we talk of economy, we see that when somebody is having money, there is chances that they can able to confuse somebody who is poor because he has that money, and then he can influence that person, and he have that issue of sexual relationship can occur because in another aspect also of economy, when somebody is having a daughter, he can able to sell out the daughter because they want wealth, that is dowry related issues. So this is also lie on the issue of economy aspect, because somebody wanted to become well and then he forced a daughter before the daughter reached that age to be married. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes, that is very key, and we have seen in very many of our societies, very many of the parents sell their daughters or give their daughters hands in marriage just because they would want the cows, they would want the goats that come in from there. It can be both economic, but it can also be a cultural aspect. Yes, Rose, your hand is up. Yes? Any other determinant? Rose, I see your hand is up. Thomas, Deng, and Dina.
No, that was the previous one.
Okay.
Yes, this is
Yes.
Thomas. Yeah, I think one of the determinant could be an environmental factors.
Yes.
More especially based on how where someone is raised. So it sometimes influence on the sexual behaviors. So we take, for example, an individual which is raised in a village, so
Yes.
has different sexual behaviors, like not like someone who's actually raised in urban center. So environmental factor and the location also actually determine the sexual behaviors of an individuals. Thank you.
And we can be able to see these differences in our day-to-day lifestyle. you're able to see how someone who is coming from town, be it a young lady, how they will dress up. Today you would look at her coming with the lipstick, whereas in the village, for your sexual behavior, you need to go to the well so that you can meet a boyfriend. So these are issues that we may not pay attention to in our society, but they are issues that influence our sexuality. Yes, John, you have something to say? I see your
Yes,
hand is
I
up.
think, I think one of the aspect also, or one of the determinant is also about the political issues, especially when there is a conflict. You find that this also affect people. Maybe people are displaced in the camp. You find that the life in the camp, it will expose, it influence on the issue of sexual behaviors. First of all, there you find that people are idols, and other, when the structures and the shelters are not in place, you find that people are sharing shelters and many other things can happen. And also issue of rape will come in situation of instabilities. So that is part of the political aspect that can influence also on issue of sexual behaviors.
And we have seen a lot of these issues rise up in conflict prone areas. And because these places are unstable, individuals, when you grow up in a camp, or because of the environment that is there, most times a lot of negative sexual behavior issues arise up. Any other person? I've not heard from Puru, I've not heard from Deng. Are you people around your gadgets, or you might have left your gadgets and moved miles away? Can we hear from you your perspective on the determinants and influences on sexual behavior? We are left with about 18 minutes to make 1 hour. So if you're not able to submit, kindly allow me to just peruse through the determinants. One is cultural diversity, as you can see there. People's culture influence their perception on sex, but also cultural practices such as arranged marriages, polygamy, societies that allow polygamy then influence someone's behavior to either have one wife or two. But also Western influences impact sexual behavior and attitude worldwide. We have seen how they impact sexual behavior today. We are able to hear issues of monogamy. These are Western influences that have arrived, and they have influenced our sexual behavior today. Biological determinants. Now, this plays a very key role in our sexual behavior. I explained a bit of this yesterday. Your testosterone levels play a very crucial role in sexual desire. Now, testosterone is for male, and although some women have higher testosterone levels, this is majorly or in men, and it is crucial in determining your sexual desire, your arousal, and your aggression. Higher levels of testosterone are associated with increased sexual motivation, whereas estrogen and progesterone influence the menstrual cycle, and this is predominantly in female. So fluctuations in your hormone levels can affect your sexual desire and behavior. You've seen the hormonal imbalances in very many individuals, where because of higher progesterone levels in an individual, you would see that an individual is having man boobs, an individual, a lady is developing beards. Now, these are, as a result, if you're a lady and you're developing beards, your movement is more masculine. These are now as a result of having high testosterone levels. And this is a biological determinant, but it's a very key determinant in our sexual behavior. We have genetic factors. Now, certain genetic makers may be more prevalent in individuals who are non-heterosexual. Twin and family studies, studies examining identical and fraternal twins, have shown higher concordance rates for sexual orientation among identical twins. So what this mainly means is that most of you have seen identical twins being attracted to each other, or what in an African context we call loving themselves. And research has shown that because of it is because of genetics that they do have this concordance. In other words, they would want to be together all the time. It may not be in a sexual relationship, but it may be as just a sign of genetics, because of your genetic makeup, that you would want to be near your twin friend. Now, family studies have also shown that this can be a hereditary component, and hereditary in that term still drives the issue of genetics, that because of the hereditary bit of the genes, you will be able to carry a concordance. You would want to be together, or you would want to have that coordination in what you do. That's why you see in many of the twin societies, they would want to put on the same clothing, they would want to eat the same type of food. All those play a role in their sexual behavior. The complex interplay. Sexual orientation is likely influenced by a combination of genetic, hormonal, and environmental factors, as many of you have discussed. Now, genetic predisposition may interact with the environmental influences during development to shape an individual's sexual orientation. Like I think Thomas mentioned, was it Thomas or either Thomas or our colleague here or John mentioned earlier on, when you're talking about environmental issues. Now, if your genetic makeup with your genetic makeup, this now interact with the environmental influences. So what happens is that if your genetic composition is heterosexual, the environment that you live in will interplay with your genetic composition, which is predisposed, and therefore it will be able to shape your sexual orientation. If your genetic composition is heterosexual and the environment or the society you live in is heterosexual, the chances that your sexual orientation will be heterosexual are extremely high. However, if you have a history of genetic homosexuality, these are rare studies, but from this slide here, if your composition genetically is let us say homo, and the environment that you're living in, for example, if we are in Europe and the environment you're in is homosexual, the chances that your orientation will be homosexual are also high. So environment alone plays a very, very huge role in shaping an individual's sexual orientation. Now, brain and neurological factors. This is another big determinant of sexual behavior in human beings. And it is a scientific explanation of sexual behavior. The hypothalamus plays a very important role. It's unfortunate that I did not get for you pictures to share here, but your brain or your neural system has got a gland called the hypothalamus gland, and it is responsible for releasing neurons or hormones that act as dopamine. Now, dopamine is an exciting hormone, something that excites, makes it is an exciting, but also we could call influences your sexual response. So therefore, through the neurotransmitters, it releases that dopamine. It releases that desire, that excitement, which influences your response. And that is why the other day when a dietary individual here was asking about nutrition, now you should be able to see the relationship between nutrition and sexual behavior in here. Your feeding pattern will then determine the activeness, the reactiveness of your hypothalamus in releasing hormones that will influence your sexual response. That is why many studies show that those who are physically active and those who have a good feeding pattern are more sexually responsive, or because they have the release of testosterone is high in men. Likewise, the release of estrogen in women is also high because of your high level of physical exercise. We've seen those situations in there, and that is how the communication takes place, starting from your brain structure. Then the neural pathways, communication between different areas of the brain and your spinal cord now facilitate your sexual arousal and the motor response. We very well know that the spinal cord has got neurons that transmit these particular hormones, and through your spinal cord you're able to have sexual arousal. That's why you most times see people complaining of their back, and most of the dysfunctions originate from your back. Because you have got back issues, it consequently affects your sexual response. That is because the neurons in there contain the supply chain of the hypothalamus to your sexual reproductive health areas. Plasticity and adaptation. Therefore, the brain exhibits neuroplastic, allowing for further adaptive changes in response to experiences and environmental influences. Now, this plasticity can shape an individual's sexual attitudes, preference, and behavior. Now, what plasticity means is that the brain does not just transmit neurons or these hormones from its own perspective. It acts according to your environment. For people who have grown in particular environments, let's say homosexual, let's say rural let's say, urban, be it among females, be it among males, people who predominantly grow under a certain environment, then the brain acts in a plasticity way or in a plastic way, in that it allows, this plasticity means that it allows you to be influenced by your socialization, because the brain is not a machine, in that it can determine how you should live. So it is being influenced, and then it keeps adapting. So if you predominantly, that is why it becomes addictive. Some of the sexual practices become addictive, and it is because you're shaping your brain, because the brain is playing plasticity, so that you can shape it according to your environment. That is why you see that for those who are public health, that is why you see when we have public health issues of pornography, when we have addictions to masturbation, when you have addictions, when someone is addicted to different deviations. Now, this is what plays a very key role. Why? Because when you do it, the brain builds adaptation. The brain starts to adapt to your practice, which practice is being shaped by your environment, and therefore, when the brain adapts, it is what many counselors call they call it that this person is addicted, that you are being addicted, but actually your brain has adopted or has adapted to your practice, which has been influenced by your environmental issues. That is why as counselors, majority always tell victims of masturbation to do away, and it is not easy for them because of this addiction of the brain. Then there are prenatal and developmental influences. There are a lot of theories that discuss development at a very young age. Now, this is what this slide is talking about, that in determining sexual influence. It is saying that the prenatal hormone exposure, hormonal influences during fetal development, can contribute to differentiation of sexual organs and the development of sexual orientations. Now, research suggests that prenatal hormone exposure may be linked to variations in gender identity and sexual orientation. So, an individual's during the fetal development, research has shown that the bearer's sexual orientation has an influence in secreting or in the creation of an individual's sexual orientation. This is deep down from the fetal development, when an individual is still in a fetal system, and the sexual orientation of the carrier or the bearer also has an influence in the orientation of the individual. Child experiences and attachment is another major determinant here. Early experiences such as secure or insecure attachment, for example, you were talking about political instability, which is an insecure attachment. Parents' attitudes towards sexuality and sexuality education can shape an individual's beliefs, attitudes, and comfort with their own sexuality. We discussed this already. Then puberty and adolescence. Hormonal changes during puberty, coupled with the society and peer influences, also contribute to exploration, formation of sexual identities, attractions, and behavior. So how people associate, or what your peers think about sexuality during puberty and adolescence, will virtually shape how you want to explore more. When you start having your menstrual periods, most girls get curious and want to explore more. But they explore more based on what their society thinks, but also how their peers think about the changes they are receiving. We have the psychological factors and we have the social factors. Psychological factors are about an individual's emotions. An individual who has experienced trauma, rape, or some psychological torture about sexuality will be less interested in sexual activities. And that is what the psychological influence can mean. Social factors, our social norms, we said earlier, and our cultural values also determine our sexual behaviors. Now we have the theoretical perspectives on sexual behavior. Our time is fast spent, but I'm left with a few slides. In the next 20 minutes, I will be able to complete them, and I hope that is okay with us. In the next 20 minutes, I will be able to complete these few slides we're left with. Is that okay with us? So that tomorrow we tackle something else. Is that okay? Or I have gone past the time we are meant to spend here?
I think you can complete it.
Okay. In the next 20 minutes, I'll be able to complete that. I've seen that a majority of the individuals have exited, but regardless, let us continue. So, there is an evolutionary perspective on sexual behavior. Sexual behavior and attitude are shaped by evolutionary processes. This one, we already discussed it today. And we say that in sexual revolution, we have seen the sexual revolution moving from conservative to now acceptable behaviors or discussions today. We talked about virginity and so forth. And we're saying that it suggests that behaviors promoting reproductive success, such as mate selection and parental investment, are favored over time. Now, this is the evolutionary perspective. Now, there is the psychoanalytic perspective. For those who also study counseling, the psychoanalytic perspective was developed by Sigmund Freud, and it emphasizes the influence of the unconscious desires. If you get time, this is a very interesting theory that you need to look at. Or if you have time, or you could inbox me on my WhatsApp, and we have a good discussion on psychoanalytic perspective, because it is one of the key theory or theoretic basis on which many of our individuals grow up. So this theory emphasizes that our unconscious desires, our childhood experiences, and the interplay between our id, our ego, and our superego affect our sexual behaviors. Our id being our thoughts, or our id is favored by, or it is shaped by the society that we live in, and our ego is being influenced by our unconscious desires, and the superego is what is beyond our comprehension. So, because of your childhood experiences, because of the unconscious desires you have, you will be able to have a particular sexual behavior. Then we have the learning perspective theory, or the cognitive one. The learning perspective in here suggests that sexual behavior and attitude are learned through conditioning, reinforcement, and observational learning. That is why we are saying that your society is the one that influences. In a society where you stay and a lot of rapists that you're seeing, there are chances that you will take rape as a normal issue, and therefore your practice will be rape. That is what it is showing. And you can learn this through conditioning probably by your society, saying that defilement is bad. That is now a conditioning, reinforcement by your parent or by your society, but by also observing what happens in your society. Then the cognitive perspective. This is more of your subconscious mind. It looks at your thoughts, beliefs, and the process, the cognitive, meaning that it is subconscious influence. It is subconscious. And now this explores how attitudes, self-perception, and decision-making processes impact sexual behavior. So it typically focuses on what are your thoughts, what are your beliefs, and what have you learned as an individual, what is your own perception in the subconscious mind. That is what cognitively it means. And it plays also a very key part. That is why we see a lot of deviants, people who practice a lot of negative sexual behavior in terms of rape, in terms of defilement. This is where they fall. Their own beliefs, their own thoughts, and their subconscious minds play a very key role. What is the human rights-based approach to sexuality? This approach emphasizes the rights and dignity of individuals in related sexual experiences and expressions. We discussed human rights yesterday, and let me just peruse through this because it is quite what we discussed yesterday. It recognizes an individual's sexual rights as a fundamental human rights, and it promotes the elimination of violence, coercion in matters of sexuality. Now, this approach advocates for access to comprehensive sexual health services, education, information, while respecting individuals' autonomy. It aims to ensure all individuals can enjoy sexual health, but also it is free from stigma and discrimination. What are the determinants? And these are now we're having a continuation on the social and environmental determinants. Social factors such as our cultural norms, family upbringing, societal expectations, and peer influences play a very key role, which we discussed. Environmental determinants such as access to sexual education, availability of resources, socio-economic conditions that we talked about, the economic conditions can impact your sexual behavior. Our childhood and adolescence also. Now, sexual behavior and attitude develop gradually during childhood. Children become more curious about their bodies, and then they engage in self-exploration. They would want to know why are the changes occurring in their body. They become curious. And during adolescence and these hormonal changes, how you relate, who you relate with, what the society brings up, then shapes your attitude. If the hormonal changes, for example, menstrual periods, if your peers look at it as being mature, or as your society looks at the start of menstrual periods as a girl being grown up, then the chances that a girl or girls in this society will start to engage in sexual activities at an early age when they start seeing their menstrual periods is high. That is how they influence your sexual behavior. Young adulthood. Young adulthood is a period of exploration and the establishment of sexual identity. Individuals develop intimate relationships, navigate sexual experiences, establish their sexual preferences and values. At our younger ages, our peers are always tasking us to talk to girls. If you're a boy, you must talk to a girl. You must learn the art of talking to a girl. All these are explorations that influence our sexual behavior. Middle adulthood is yet another stage. In the middle adulthood, sexual behavior and attitudes are influenced by the various factors, such as what are the relationship dynamics, what goes in there, are you trustworthy to each other, physical health, what is the health of your individual, maintaining sexual satisfaction, and addressing changes in the desire. We've seen people break up because they cannot freely express their sexuality to their partner. They cannot satisfy. This is the period in the middle adulthood where we're trying to live according to what an individual believes is his attitude towards sex. If your attitudes do not match the relationship dynamics, then you pull out. This is where the a lot of noise on the relationship occurs. Sexual behavior and attitude continue to be important in the older adulthood, although they may change due to physiological factors, health conditions, and societal attitudes towards aging and sexuality. For example, in the majority of the societies, they believe that women who, when they clock 40, they can no longer get married. This now influences also their sexual behavior. So your emotional intimacy and companionship often becomes more important in this stage of life, and it is in this stage of life that an individual feels they should be intimate. At an older adulthood, we're not talking about elderly, but we're talking about at an older adulthood, and this is when a woman is clocking closer to their with to their end periods. When a woman is in their peak of reproduction, this is where their emotional intimacy becomes very important onto them. For men, the period or the age may not be very determining, but studies have also shown today, although, that your sperm count keeps reducing as you age about. But we have, however, seen that elderly men can still make ladies pregnant even to their later ages. So it has more impact on the female than on the male when we're discussing older adulthood. How do we measure sexual behavior? As a researcher, you can use several methods to measure our sexual behavior. This can be through quantitative, but also through qualitative measures. For example, self-report surveys, where you can ask individuals questions, a particular area, a sample survey. You can do interviews where you ask for an individual's desire, what are their attitudes towards sex, and then you're able to determine their sexual behavior. Through behavioral observations, you just be able to go into a society and observe their sexual behavior through an observation, seeing what they do, seeing what they practice, seeing the clothes they wear, seeing what they say. All these are observatory, and you're able to determine their sexual behavior. You can also analyze sexual health data. We have a lot of sexual health data that is lying out there. You're able to understand how many mothers visit ANC. These are all sexual behaviors. How many mothers are able to utilize family planning. You can have a look at a very broad, you can analyze very broad analysis, either quantitatively or qualitatively. You can be able to look at a mother's perspective on or who determines a type of contraceptive. Now, these are the sexual behaviors that occur, that an individual has no right, or a woman has no right in determining her sexuality. This you can do through analysis. There is the demographic health surveys that are conducted across countries in this world. You can be able to go to DHS programs on your browser in Google, and you'll be able to access a lot of sexual health data that you can actually analyze and realize that there are a lot of different sexual behaviors in the societies out there. And lastly, we want to look at variations or challenges and in the measurement of sexual behavior. Now, measuring sexual behavior can be challenging. Why? Because of the societal taboos. The taboos, majority of the taboos in our society stop us from freely discussing sexually related issues. We cannot be able to discuss sexual issues because the society takes discussing these issues or asking an individual about their sexual behavior as a taboo. These are issues that are challenging when you're measuring sexual behavior. Privacy concerns. Individuals may feel offended and they may feel they cannot share out issues related to sexual behavior. We also have a social desirability bias that the society desires a specific sexual behavior, and therefore, for example, in an African setting, an individual cannot identify as an LGBTQ because our society has a bias on issues of LGBTQ. The sensitivity and the nature of the topic is also another issue that is challenging when we are discussing sexual behavior, because majority of our societies believe these are bedroom or these are indoor discussions. Individuals may find it hard for them to discuss these issues freely with you. And that ends my presentation for today. Unless we do have questions, we can have them and then we conclude this session. I think I've gone more by about 16 minutes away from our 1 hour schedule. So if there are any other questions, kindly ask them, then